On my wedding night, a transfer order sealed my fate. I was to marry the infamous Reaper of Fort Hamilton, Lewis. Everyone said he was cold, ruthless, and that a battlefield injury had taken him out of the game for good. My new mother-in-law held my hand, sighing that I'd have to be patient with him for the rest of my life. I resigned myself to my fate, lying stiffly on the wedding bed next to a man as cold as a block of ice. But then, a burning hot male voice suddenly echoed in my mind, so soft, softer than a marshmallow. Why isn't she moving? If she just moved a little, I could totally justify holding her while we sleep. Hold it together, Lewis. You're a gentleman. You can't scare your new bride. My eyes flew open. You call this taken out of the game? You, don't be afraid. The man beside me finally spoke. His voice, like the rest of him, was cold and hard, like a frozen stone in winter. My name is Lena. 3 days ago, I was the belle of the textile mill, with a line of suitors stretching from the factory gates to West Main Street. But with the stroke of a pen, my father, the mill director, had me married off to Fort Hamilton, making me the wife of the Reaper himself, Lewis. The whole base was laughing at me. I was a rose, they said, planted in a pile of manure, sterile manure, at that. My heart was bitter. I closed my eyes and played dead, just wanting to get through the night. In the darkness, that strange male voice exploded in my head again. Is she crying? Was I too harsh just now? I knew I shouldn't have listened to Mom. A man needs to be stern, she said. Great, now I'm stern, and I've scared off my wife. Her eyelashes are so long, like two little fans. I froze. Whose voice was that? There was no one else in the room. I peeked through a tiny slit in my eyelids. Lewis was lying flat on his back beside me, staring straight at the ceiling, his lips pressed into a thin line. He hadn't moved at all. But the voice continued. Does she think I'm ugly? I guess so, with this scar on my face. No, I have to let her know that besides the scar on my face, everything else is standing tall and proud. I nearly choked on my own spit. What kind of X-rated stuff was this? I shot up, staring daggers at Lewis. He jumped, sitting up with me, his brow furrowed as he watched me warily, like I was some kind of spy. What are you doing? He asked, his voice sharp with suspicion. I didn't say anything, because the voice in my head had turned into a full-blown scream fest. She sat up. What's she doing? Is she going to chew me out and call me a liar? Wait, her eyes are sparkling, and her cheeks are all flushed. Could it be, she wants it too? Oh crap, I'm not ready. What if I'm no good? Will she think I really can't perform? I looked at the man before me. Lewis. 26 years old, a decorated major. A faint scar ran from his brow to his cheekbone on his chiseled face. Far from being ugly, it gave him a rugged, masculine air. He sat with his back ramrod straight, his whole body radiating a frosty, keep your distance vibe. But the voice in his head belonged to a lovesick puppy who'd never been weaned. The stark contrast left me stunned. I'm thirsty, I blurted, grabbing a random excuse as I threw back the covers to get out of bed. Don't move. Lewis grabbed my wrist. His hand was large and hot, his palm calloused. It felt like a branding iron on my skin. My heart skipped a beat, and the voice in my head started setting off fireworks. I got it. Her hand is so soft. Softer than tofu. Is she going to be mad? Is she going to think I'm a creep? I was just worried she'd be cold getting out of bed. I swear I had no other intentions. Okay, I admit it, maybe I had a few other intentions. I pulled my hand back, my face so hot I could fry an egg on it. It finally dawned on me. I could hear the Reaper's inner thoughts. This realization instantly transformed me from a timid little bride into the leading lady who'd been handed the script. I cleared my throat, deciding to test the waters. I heard you were injured in battle. I looked at him with feigned concern, my eyes filled with just the right amount of sympathy. Louis's body visibly tensed, and his gaze darkened. "Yeah," he grunted, and said no more. But the scrolling commentary in my head was going wild. "Here we go," she asked. She must have heard the rumors too. How do I explain this? If I say I'm not really injured, won't I sound desperate? If I say I am, how am I supposed to hold my wife while we sleep tonight? This is so annoying. It's all that gossip monger Mike's fault. The whole base knew my leg almost got blown off, but somehow by the time it reached the family housing, it turned into my junk getting blown off. So that's how it was. The bitterness in my heart vanished, replaced by a strange feeling that made me want to laugh but not dare to. Seeing the tragic look on his face, as if to say, "I sacrificed for my country, please don't despise me," I was secretly ecstatic. "It's okay," I said, sitting back down on the bed. I mimicked his mother, gently patting the back of his hand. "I don't mind. From now on, I'll take care of you." His inner voice? Wait, that's not in the script. Shouldn't she be crying and demanding to go back to her parents? She'll take care of me? Is she throwing shade at me? Although, being taken care of by my wife doesn't sound half bad. This repressed man had way too much going on in his head. I stifled a laugh, slid back under the covers, and deliberately kept my distance, creating a wide gulf between us. "Let's get some sleep. We have to be up early to pay our respects to Mom and Dad." The man beside me was silent, but his inner voice was as loud as thunder. "That's it? We're just sleeping? Why isn't she following the script? She's so far away. Is she afraid I won't be able to control myself? Heaven is my witness, I just want to hold her while we sleep. Is this blanket too small? It feels like the Milky Way is between us." A moment later, I felt the mattress dip slightly. Louis was carefully inching his way toward me. "Just a little closer, she won't notice, right?" I bit my lip to keep from laughing out loud. A few moments later, he moved again. Almost there. In the darkness, I could feel his scorching body right behind me, his hot breath practically on my neck. I could even picture his tense, expectant expression. Just as he was about to succeed, I suddenly rolled over to face him. "Major," I whispered in the dark, batting my eyelashes, my voice soft and light, "can't you sleep?" Louis's body instantly went rigid as an iron plank. His inner voice was the loudest thing I had ever heard. Holy crap. The next morning, I was woken up by a gurgling sound. Not my stomach, but Louis's inner voice. "My wife's neck is so pale, I want to kiss it. Resist. You're a gentleman. Why isn't she up yet? Mom said my sisters-in-law are coming over today. What if they try to give her a hard time? Nope, I've got to think of a way to help my wife slay today." "Dude, you seem to know a little too much." I opened my eyes and met Louis's, which were filled with righteousness and purity, a stark contrast to the garbage floating around in his head. "You're awake? Let's get up. Mom wants us over for breakfast," he said, his voice steady, as if he wasn't the one howling in his mind all night. I nodded and slowly got up to dress. The Louis were indeed a large family. Louis was the third son, with two older brothers. The eldest had a government job, and the second was a businessman. Both were married with kids old enough to play Little League. Word was, both sisters-in-law were a real piece of work. As I braided my hair, I listened to Louis's live commentary. The oldest one, Jessica, loves to hide a knife behind her smile. She's definitely going to bring up Lena's background, saying she's just from a working-class family and not good enough for us. The second one, Karen, is a firecracker who goes off at the slightest provocation. She can't stand to see anyone doing better than her. Lena's so pretty, Karen's definitely going to be jealous. How should I warn Lena? If I say it directly, will I seem like a nagging busybody? Got it. Louis walked over to me, pulled a brand new, army green polyester shirt from the closet, and handed it to me. For the tea ceremony today. Wear this, he said concisely. I took the shirt, but he didn't let go. He pointed to the collar, then to his own insignia. Here, he cleared his throat, button it all the way up. It looks more sharp. I got it instantly. His inner voice was screaming, button it all up. Cover her neck. Don't let them see any hickeys. Wait, I didn't kiss her last night, but still, button it up tight. Give off some serious military wife vibes, and let's see if they still dare to look down on you. He was giving me pointers. A warmth spread through my chest. I changed into the shirt, buttoned every single button, and styled my hair into 2 neat braids. I looked proper and cool. When we walked into the dining room, sure enough, the whole family was there. His mom was setting out bowls, his dad was reading the paper at the head of the table, and his 2 older brothers were smiling beside them. The 2 women at the table, however, were scanning me up and down like a pair of searchlights. The one on the left, in a fashionable floral dress with curled hair and a smile, must be the eldest sister-in-law, Jessica. The one on the right, wearing a polyester shirt in a brighter color, chin slightly raised with an impatient look, must be the second sister-in-law, Karen. Well, this must be our new sister-in-law. It's so good to finally meet you, Jessica began, her smile as bright as a flower. The rumor mill has been buzzing, saying our Louis brought home a goddess. Seeing you today, it's true. It's just, isn't your family background a little common? Our Louis is a major, after all. Here it comes, the classic put down. Before I could speak, I heard Louis's inner voice roaring. Bullshit. What's wrong with a common background? The working class is glorious. Your dad was a shady profiteer, what right do you have to talk about my wife? I almost burst out laughing. I picked up a teacup, walked over to my in-laws, and respectfully served them their tea. Only then did I turn to Jessica with a slight smile. You're right, Jessica. I come from a common background, not like your scholarly family. The smile on Jessica's face grew wider. Then I changed my tune. But my father always said that family status isn't what's important, it's one's principles. We may be a working-class family, but we're principled and patriotic through and through. Unlike some people, who talk a big game about progress but are running who knows what on the side. Louis is a war hero. The most important thing for his wife is to be politically irreproachable. Don't you agree, Jessica? I put extra emphasis on the words running who knows what. The color drained from Jessica's face. Louis's inner voice, nice one. My wife is a badass. Great comeback. Let's see her try that again. On the outside, he remained poker-faced, but under the table, he sneakily gave me a thumbs up. Karen, the sister-in-law next to her, snorted. You've got a sharp tongue. But what's the use of just talking? A woman's worth is in running a home and having children. You'd better get to work, Lena. The whole family is counting on you to carry on Louis's line. Her words were even more malicious, a clear jab at the rumors about Louis. The mood at the table turned awkward. Louis's fist clenched instantly, I could even hear him grinding his teeth. His inner voice was burning with rage. Karen is such an idiot. What does she know? Whether I can perform or not is none of her damn business. I'm so pissed. If I flip the table now, will it scare Lena? I reached under the table and gently placed my hand over his fist. He froze, then slowly relaxed his hand. I looked up at Karen, my smile even sweeter. You're right, Karen. But these things depend on fate, and on the man's ability. I'd love to get to work, but that would require our Louis to have some time off. I paused deliberately, then turned to Louis, my eyes full of mock complaint and affection. You wore me out so much last night, and then you still got up for PT so early this morning. I'm completely exhausted. In the future, could you please try to pace yourself? My voice was just loud enough for everyone at the table to hear clearly. The air froze. My father-in-law was holding his newspaper upside down. My mother-in-law dropped her chopsticks. My brothers-in-law looked like they'd seen a ghost. Jessica and Karen were dumbstruck, their jaws on the floor. And next to me, Louis's handsome face turned beet red, starting from his ears and spreading until it was the color of a cooked lobster. His inner voice wasn't just screaming anymore. It was a nuclear explosion. Holy hell, what is she saying? What did I do last night? I didn't do anything. It's over, my reputation is ruined. Wait, is she trying to help me? Is she telling everyone that I can perform? Oh my God, my wife is the best. She's willing to sacrifice her own reputation for mine. I, Louis, will have no other wife but her. Oh, wait, I already married her. I fought to hold back my laughter as I gently hooked his palm with my finger under the table. Seeing him, so torn between wanting to explain and not daring to, wanting to be shy but having to maintain his authority, I suddenly thought that this military marriage might actually be a lot of fun. Just then, the base's broadcast system crackled to life with the sound of a bugle call for an emergency assembly. Louis shot to his feet. Orders from command. I have to get back to my unit immediately. He glanced at me, his eyes saying 1,000 words, but all he said was, I'm leaving. The house is in your hands. I watched his retreating back, a little hollow inside. I never expected to be a widow of sorts on the second day of my marriage. But the last of his thoughts lingering in the air left me stunned. Damn it, couldn't this mission have come at any other time? I haven't even gotten to kiss my wife yet. Louis was gone for half a month. At first, my 2 sisters-in-law tried to stir up trouble, but after I'd put them in their place that one time, they quieted down. At most, they'd make a few catty remarks, but nothing that bothered me. I was happy with the peace and quiet, spending my days reading and browsing the base exchange. Life was good. The only person who got on my nerves was Melody. Melody was the star of the base's entertainment troupe. True to her name, she was as pure as a lotus, with a soft, gentle voice. She was the dream girl of every man on base and Louis's #1 admirer. Before I arrived, everyone assumed she would be the one to marry Louis. So, her gaze always held a faint, veiled hostility toward me. One day, as I was hanging blankets in the yard, Melody glided over, carrying a basin of washed clothes. Lena, she said with a sweet smile, all alone at home? With the major gone, you must be so lonely. I snapped a blanket open, sending cotton fluff flying in the sunlight. I gave a noncommittal Wasting another word on a two-faced snake like her was pointless. Sigh, she sighed, her voice just loud enough for the other military wives shelling peas nearby to hear. I feel so bad for the major. That injury of his, well, you know how men are. Their pride is the most important thing. Lena, you must never mention it in front of him, or he'll be devastated. She looked at me with pity, as if I were the poor, lonely wife. The nearby wives immediately perked up their ears, exchanging knowing glances. I scoffed internally. Amateur hour. Just then, the mailman rode up on his old school bicycle. A letter for Lena. My eyes lit up. It was from Louis. I took the thick envelope. My name was written on it in 3 bold, sweeping characters. Melody's eyes flickered. Is that a letter from the major? He's so good to you, writing after just a few days. We used to beg him to write home, but he always said he was too busy with training to write a single word. The subtext was clear, it's not that he wouldn't write, he just couldn't be bothered to write to you. I ignored her and opened the envelope. The letter was filled with Louis's strong, forceful handwriting. He wrote about daily life in the unit, asking if I was settling in, if I had enough money and ration tickets, and telling me not to shortchange myself. It was normal, even mundane. But I could hear the inner thoughts attached to the paper, from when he was writing it. I wonder how my wife is doing at home. Have those 2 sisters-in-law been bothering her? That Melody woman is up to no good. She's definitely going to cause trouble for Lena. Lena's so innocent she's no match for her. I have to think of a way to help my wife nip this potential threat in the bud. Got it. At the end of the letter, Lewis had added in a casual tone, "By the way, that wooden box I asked you to put away is in the iron trunk under the bed. Find some time to throw it out. Everything inside is expired, so there's no point in keeping it." A wooden box? An idea sparked. I smiled at Melody. "Melody, I'm so sorry to ask, but Lewis wants me to throw something out. Could you give me a hand? I can't move it by myself." Doubt flickered in Melody's eyes, but she smiled and agreed. "Of course, Lena." I led her into the bedroom and dragged a heavy iron trunk out from under the bed. It wasn't locked. I opened it, and Melody's breath caught in her throat. There were no jewels or treasures inside, just a trunk completely full of letters. On top was an exquisite wooden box filled with a thick stack of envelopes. The addressee was clearly written, Melody. But none of the letters had ever been opened. The blood drained from Melody's face. I feigned surprise. "Oh. So this is what Lewis was talking about. Melody, I'm so sorry. Look at this, he said it's all expired and told me to throw it away. I guess it makes sense. After all these years, the love letters inside have probably turned yellow, right?" As I spoke, I handed her the wooden box. "Since you wrote them, it's only right they go back to you. Our Lewis is a simple man, he doesn't know how to appreciate beauty. Don't take it to heart." The crowd of gossiping wives let out a collective, stifled gasp. Who would have thought that the high and mighty Melody had been chasing Lewis for years, and he hadn't even opened a single one of her letters? Melody clutched the box, her fingers trembling. Her face was a ghastly mix of green and white, as if she'd been slapped in public 100 times. She glared at me, the innocence in her eyes gone, replaced by pure venom. "Don't get too cocky, Lena," she hissed. I smiled and leaned in close, whispering in a voice only we could hear, "Oh, the cockiness is just getting started." Watching Melody flee in humiliation, I lifted Lewis's letter to my lips and gave it a small kiss. A brilliant way to use a borrowed knife. This man was fatally charming. I didn't know it then, but thousands of miles away on a training field, Lewis let out a massive sneeze. A fellow soldier teased him, "Thinking about your wife, Major?" Lewis's ears turned red, but he barked, "Get lost. Back to training." But in his mind, he was thinking, "I wonder if that trick worked. My wife is so smart, she must have understood what I meant." Sigh, I miss my wife. I miss her scent, so sweet and soft. Next time I'm on leave, I'm going to make up for that missed kiss, and then some. After the Melody incident, my status on the base inexplicably rose. No one dared to say I wasn't good enough for Lewis to my face anymore, and no one brought up the rumors of his inadequacy to get under my skin. I became the woman who could tame the Reaper. With my days now quiet, the born overachiever in me started to get restless. Back at the textile mill, I was a technical innovation champion. Now, seeing the military wives still managing their households in the most primitive ways, I got an itch. Behind the base housing was a patch of barren land. The soil was too alkaline for anything to grow, so it had been left deserted. An idea began to form. In my past life, before I came here, I'd read some books on agricultural technology in the library, and one of them had a method for improving alkaline soil. I decided to go for it. I asked my mother-in-law for permission to use the land. She had a "do whatever makes you happy" expression. The land was just sitting there anyway. And so, everyone on base saw the new major's wife, that delicate city girl, heading to the barren field every day with a hoe over her shoulder. TSK, city folks have strange hobbies. Is this her idea of roughing it? I bet she's just bored. A couple of days of digging and a few blisters, and she'll learn her lesson. My sisters-in-law came to see me once. They looked at me, covered in mud, and just shook their heads. "Lena, why are you doing this to yourself? If you need something, just ask the family. Don't embarrass yourself out here," Karen said bluntly. I ignored the gossip and focused all my energy on my experimental plot. Following the book's instructions, I flooded the field to leach the salt, mixed in sand to reduce the alkalinity, and even hauled loads of rich compost from the nearby hills to improve the soil. After 2 weeks, I was tanner and thinner, but the hard, cracked earth had become soft and fertile. I planted my first batch of bok choy seeds. During this time, Louis sent 2 more letters. As usual, they were full of concern for my well-being and more of his remote control tactics. Mom said Lena is farming. She's a city girl, what does she know about farming? She'll probably end up growing weeds instead of vegetables. No, I have to help her. So, in his second letter, he casually mentioned, a buddy of mine graduated from agricultural school. He said that to get vegetables to grow well, you need to add some wood ash as fertilizer. If you're bored at home, you could give it a try. I read the letter and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This man was really worrying himself sick over me. Not only did I add wood ash, but I also made my own fermented fertilizer, tending to my little plot more carefully than I tended to my own face. A month later, when the first crop of bok choy sprouted tender green shoots, the entire base was in an uproar. No one could believe that the cursed land could actually produce vegetables. When I harvested the first basket of crisp, fresh bok choy, washed them, and gave a handful to every family on our block, the way the other wives looked at me changed. It went from entertainment to admiration. Lena, you're a miracle worker. You even made this land fertile. Seriously, you have such a green thumb. You have to teach us. I became the agricultural expert of the military wives circle. My mother-in-law was overjoyed, holding my hand and endlessly praising me for being capable and talented. My sisters-in-law also saw me in a new light and no longer dared to look down on the daughter-in-law from a working-class family. Far from embarrassing myself, I had brought great honor to the Lewis family. One day, I was in the garden watering the second batch of seedlings when Lewis's communications officer, Private Miller, came racing over on his bicycle. Ma'am. Ma'am. The major's back. My heart skipped a beat, and I dropped the water ladle. He was back. I ran home with Miller, and from a distance, I could see a crowd gathered at our doorstep. I pushed my way through and saw Lewis, dressed in a dusty uniform, standing in the middle of the yard. He was darker and thinner than when he left, but his eyes were brighter. He was holding one of the bok choy I grew, turning it over and over in his hands. The people around him were all singing my praises. Major, you're so lucky. You married a real angel. Yeah, your wife is amazing. She turned a wasteland into a vegetable garden. Lewis didn't say anything. He just looked at me, his eyes full of what looked like a sky full of stars. I could hear a grand military parade happening in his mind. My wife. That's my wife. See that? That's Lewis's wife. A goddess in the streets, a chef in the sheets, and damn it, she can even tame the wilderness. Who said she's delicate? This is called grace and skill. You common folk wouldn't understand. Okay, hold it together, don't smile. I'm the cold, aloof reaper. Can't break character. He forced down the corners of his mouth, cleared his throat, and strode toward me. Then, in front of everyone, he reached out his large, well-defined hand, not to take mine, not to hug me, but gently, he wiped a speck of dirt from the tip of my nose. His touch was light, with a clumsy sort of tenderness. You've worked hard, he said, looking at me, his voice low. My face instantly flushed red. And his inner monologue was so sweet it could give you a cavity. I really want to kiss her. No, too many people. Tonight. When we get home, behind closed doors, I'll kiss her until she can't breathe. Lewis was on leave for a week this time. On his first night back, I made a special effort in the kitchen, using the bok choy I grew to cook him a lavish dinner. At the table, his parents kept piling food onto his plate, fussing over him. He responded to them while secretly sneaking glances at me from the corner of his eye. The commentary in his head never stopped. My wife's cooking is amazing. 100 times better than the slop in the mess hall. Why isn't she looking at me? Is she still mad at me for being gone so long? She looks a little thinner, her chin is sharper. It must be from working on the garden. I'm such a jerk, letting her work so hard. After dinner, I started clearing the dishes. My mother-in-law tried to help, but I smiled and shooed her out of the kitchen. Louis followed me in, his tall frame instantly filling the small space. I'll do it. He reached for the bowl in my hand. No need, I'm fast, I said, turning to avoid him. We stood there, at a stalemate, the atmosphere a little strange. The sound of running water covered our slightly ragged breathing. Her hands are so beautiful, so pale and slender. It's a shame to waste them on washing dishes. She still smells so good, like sun-dried laundry mixed with a hint of fresh grass. I really want to hug her from behind. I felt like his intense gaze was burning a hole through my back. I washed the dishes faster, desperate to escape the suffocating space. Just as I dried my hands, ready to make a break for it, he blocked the doorway. Lena, he said my name, his voice a little hoarse. I kept my head down, not daring to look him in the eye. That garden, don't work on it anymore. It's too hard, he said seriously, looking at me. I looked up and met his deep gaze. In his eyes, there was pain, concern, and a swirling mix of emotions I couldn't quite decipher. I don't think it's hard, I said honestly. I like it. He fell silent. But his inner voice was roaring, she likes it. She actually said she likes it. Is she just saying that to spite me? I'm a grown man, and I'm letting my wife work the fields. What kind of man am I? No, I have to let her know that her husband can provide for her. The next second, he reached out and pulled me into his arms. The hug was so sudden that I crashed into his hard, searing chest, my nose filled with the clean scent of his soap and a faint hint of sweat. My mind went blank. His heartbeat was like a war drum, thudding heavily against my eardrum. And his inner voice was deafening. I'm holding her. I'm finally holding her. So soft. Exactly like I imagined. She's not pushing me away. Does that mean she doesn't hate me? I didn't push him away. Because my whole body had turned to jelly. I couldn't muster any strength. His arms were like iron clamps around my waist, so tight it felt like he was trying to merge me into his very bones. Lena, he whispered in my ear, his voice thick with suppressed emotion, from now on, you are not allowed to do any more heavy lifting. You have me. Those 3 words, you have me, moved me more than any flowery declaration of love could. I buried my face in his chest and mumbled a soft okay. He seemed encouraged by this, his arms tightening around me. She agreed. She agreed. Does she like me too? Can I kiss her? Can I kiss her now? The mood is right. If I don't kiss her now, I'm less than a man, right? I could feel him lowering his head slightly, his warm breath fanning the top of my hair. My heart was in my throat. Here it comes, it's coming. But just as his lips were about to touch mine. Ahem. My mother-in-law's cough echoed from the kitchen doorway. Louis sprang back like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He jumped 3 feet away, standing there awkwardly, his face as red as a boiled shrimp. Mom, what are you doing here? He stammered. His mom, holding a teacup, had a perfect I-saw-nothing expression. Just getting a drink of water. You too, carry on, carry on. With that, she calmly filled her cup and slowly walked away. She left Louis and me staring at each other, the air so awkward you could cut it with a knife. Louis's inner voice was a howl of pure despair. Wow. Is my mother the devil? I was so close. I was 0.01 centimeters away. Seeing his indignant but helpless expression, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. He shot me a wounded look, turned, and fled. Watching his clumsy, almost uncoordinated escape from the kitchen, I laughed even harder. That night, I lay in bed, pretending to be asleep. Beside me, Louis was tossing and turning like a pancake on a griddle. Tonight. I can't miss my chance again. I'm a man, what's wrong with taking the initiative? But, what if she's not willing? What if she thinks I'm too rough? Forget it. I'm going for it. I felt him take a deep breath, and then, slowly, he moved closer. A large, hot hand came to rest, ever so carefully, on my waist. That calloused hand was like a brand, its heat searing through my thin nightgown and making my heart tremble. I held my breath, not daring to move. Louis's inner voice was so tense it was practically cracking. She didn't pull away. She really didn't pull away. Does that mean she's willing? Can I take the next step? The book said women like a gentle touch. I have to be gentle, not like I'm on the training field. A book? He reads books. What kind of books? I nearly laughed out loud. He tentatively pulled me closer into his embrace. I complied, my back pressing against his scorching chest. He let out a contented sigh. So nice. It's like holding a cloud. And then, nothing. I waited and waited, nearly falling asleep, but he was actually just holding me. I was a little disappointed. I turned over, my eyes meeting his in the dark. They were shining with an astonishing brightness. Louis. Yeah? His voice was incredibly hoarse. Are you really not up to it? I asked deliberately. A man's pride is not to be challenged. Sure enough, I heard a boom in his head as the last thread of his restraint snapped. She dares to doubt me? This is the last straw. Tonight, I'm going to show her exactly what her husband is made of. The next thing I knew, the world was spinning. He flipped me over and pinned me down, his scorching kisses raining down on me. His kiss was nothing like the man himself. It was dominant, forceful, with a raw, urgent edge, as if he was trying to pour all the longing and restraint of the past few weeks into me. He kissed me until I was dizzy, my mind a complete blank. So, this was the Reaper's true face. So, all those rumors about him being broken were lies. He wasn't just capable. He was, very, very capable. The next day, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck, my body sore and weak. The spot beside me was already empty. On the nightstand was a glass of warm water and a note. Making breakfast. Sleep in. Louis. The handwriting was bold and energetic, betraying the writer's irrepressible good mood. I picked up the glass and took a sip, a sweet feeling blooming in my chest. Just then, I heard Louis talking with his mom outside the door. His mom, Louis, why are you up so early? And humming, too. Did you find some money? Louis's voice was filled with a pride he couldn't hide. Mom, I've got something to tell you. You're going to be a grandma very soon. I sprayed a mouthful of water. That shameless man. I threw back the covers to get up and give him a piece of my mind when I noticed a conspicuous red stain on the sheet. I froze. It was, from me. But on the other side of the sheet, there was another small, dark red stain. I was still wondering about it when Louis walked in, holding a steaming bowl of egg noodles. His eyes lit up when he saw I was awake, but then his expression turned awkward when he saw me staring at the sheet. His inner voice was a mix of nervousness and regret. Crap, she saw it. I was too excited last night and forgot to clean up the wound. The blood seeped out. Is she going to think I'm pathetic? That I can't even kiss someone without making myself bleed? Kissing himself into bleeding? I looked at him, puzzled, and saw him subconsciously lick his lips. That's when I noticed a tiny, scabbed-over cut on his lip. I understood instantly. Last night, he had kissed me so hard, so urgently, that he had actually bitten his own lip. This adorable idiot. I looked at him standing there awkwardly with the bowl of noodles, like a guilty child. I didn't know whether to be angry or amused, but my heart ached for him. Come here, I beckoned. He obediently came over and placed the bowl on the nightstand. I reached out and gently touched the cut on his lip. Does it hurt? He shook his head, though his ears were beet red. Doesn't hurt. But his inner voice was howling, it hurts. Of course it hurts. I practically chewed my own lip off trying to kiss my wife. But it was worth it. So worth it. I pulled my hand back and pointed to the 2 stains on the sheet. Major, I think you owe me an explanation. What exactly is going on here? I wanted to see how this repressed man would explain his heroic injury. Lewis's face instantly turned the color of a ripe plum. Lewis's eyes darted around, avoiding mine. That's mosquito blood. Mosquitoes in the middle of winter? 2 of them, no less. One on my side, one on his, performing some kind of synchronized art project on the sheets. His inner monologue was about to drown him. I'm a genius. Mosquito blood. The perfect excuse. She'll totally buy it. She's so innocent. Wait, why is she looking at me like that? Does she not believe me? Crap, how do I explain this? I can't just say I was so excited kissing you that I bit my own lip, can I? Where would my Reaper reputation be then? Seeing him spout such earnest nonsense, I decided to mess with him. Oh, really? I pulled back the covers and pointed to a non-existent mosquito bite on my leg. Well, this must have been a tough mosquito. It bit me so hard my legs are still weak. Major, you have to avenge me. Find this audacious insect and bring it to justice. His face, in a fascinating display, shifted from red to a deep shade of purple. I bet he was desperately looking for a hole to crawl into. It's over. She knows. She definitely knows. Is she laughing at me? Laughing at my inexperience, like some teenage boy? There goes my legendary reputation. I finally couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. Lewis watched me, bent over in hysterics, his expression shifting from embarrassment to mortification, and finally, to a helpless smile of his own. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled me into his arms, resting his chin on the top of my head. Lena, he said, his voice low and regretful, I'm sorry. I don't have much experience. Pfft, I playfully punched his chest. Who does? He didn't say anything, just held me tighter. After that tender moment, life went on. Lewis's leave ended quickly, and he returned to his unit. But this time, my mindset was completely different. I was no longer the passive bride who just accepted her fate. I was the mistress of this house, Lewis's rightful wife. I kept the house in perfect order, doubled the size of my vegetable garden, and even started teaching the other military wives how to pickle vegetables. My prestige on the base grew day by day. But with great power comes great jealousy. My rising star was clearly getting in some people's way. One day, I was at home sorting through a package Lewis had sent back. It was his dirty laundry and another letter. I was happily listening to the sweet nothings in the letter. My wife is so capable, I love her to death, when Melody appeared like a ghost again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood 2 men in uniform with grim expressions. Comrade Lena, one of the men, who had a square face, said sternly, "We're from base security. We've received a report that you are a person of unknown identity with ties to enemy spies. Please come with us for questioning." My heart dropped. Enemy spies? In this era, that was a death sentence. Melody stood behind them, a triumphant smirk on her face. "Don't be scared, Lena. As long as you have a clear conscience, the authorities will clear your name," she said with false sincerity. I understood immediately. This was her doing. I clutched the letter in my hand, forcing myself to stay calm. "Comrades, you can't just make accusations like that. You say I have ties to enemy spies. Where's your evidence?" "The evidence is," Melody interjected, "that you, a common textile mill worker, somehow managed to marry the major. Since you arrived, you've been stirring things up, farming and winning people over. Who knows what your real motives are? And, she pointed to the package in my hands, why is the Major sending you packages and letters so frequently? Are you passing intelligence back and forth? Her logic was outrageous. But in those sensitive times, once the seed of suspicion was planted, it was hard to uproot. Please cooperate with our investigation, the security officer said, reaching for the package. I took a step back, clutching it to my chest. This wasn't just Lewis's clothes and a letter, it was the bond between us. I wouldn't let them take it. At that tense moment, a thunderous roar came from the doorway. I'd like to see anyone lay a hand on her. It was Lewis. He was back. He stood in the doorway in his crisp uniform, backlit by the sun like an avenging god. His eyes were as cold as ice, fixed on the two security officers. Is this how base security conducts its investigations? You dare harass the family of a war hero based on nothing more than a malicious accusation? His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. The security officer's legs started to tremble. Ma, Major Lewis. Lewis ignored the two terrified security officers. His gaze, sharp as a knife, landed on Melody. Comrade Melody, he said, his voice so cold it could freeze water, do you know the penalty for falsely accusing the family of an active duty soldier? The blood drained from Melody's face. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't utter a word. She never dreamed Lewis would suddenly return at this very moment. Lewis's inner voice was far more turbulent than his expression. Damn it. I'm out there risking my life on the front lines, and these bastards dare to mess with my wife behind my back. Melody, that venomous bitch. Last time wasn't enough of a lesson. This time, I'll make sure she rots in jail. My wife must be terrified. She's so timid. Wait, no, my wife is tough as nails, but she must be feeling wronged. He strode over to me and, in front of everyone, pulled me behind him. It was an undeniable, protective gesture. My heart instantly settled. With him here, I wasn't afraid of anything. Lewis, why are you back? I whispered. Mission ended early. I was worried about you, he murmured without turning around. Then he faced the others again, his eyes turning back to ice. Tell me, who gave you the nerve? The two security officers exchanged a glance. Finally, the square-faced one managed to say, Major, we were just following orders from Deputy Director Evans. Deputy Director Evans? My mind raced. Wasn't that Jessica's uncle? Lewis's eyes narrowed. Aha, so it was an inside job. That Jessica woman, I knew she was no good. A wolf in sheep's clothing, always pulling shady crap behind our backs. Does she think I won't touch her just because her uncle is a deputy director? How naive. Lewis let out a cold laugh. Deputy Director Evans? Good, very good. It seems our base security is long overdue for a cleanup. He turned to Melody. And you? You say Lena's identity is suspicious? That we're passing intelligence in our packages? He snatched the package from my arms and, in front of everyone, dumped its contents onto the ground. A pile of dirty clothes scattered everywhere. Then he took out the letter and handed it to the square-faced officer. Read it. The officer's hands trembled as he took the letter and began to read haltingly. My dearest wife, I hope this letter finds you well. The food here is the same as always, beef and potato stew. I think I'm turning into a potato. I miss your pot roast. He couldn't read any further, his face bright red. The onlooking wives burst into laughter. This was their so-called intelligence. This was clearly just a husband and wife being sweet to each other. Melody's face was a mess of colors. This is impossible. She shrieked. You must have hidden the real intelligence. Enough. Lewis roared. Melody, you've pushed your luck again and again. Did you really think I wouldn't touch you? He pulled a few photos and a file from his pocket and threw them in her face. See for yourself what this is. The photos showed Melody in a park corner, arguing with a strange man. The file was a detailed investigation report. "This man," Lewis said coldly, pointing to the photo, "is a reporter for a foreign news agency. Comrade Melody, you've been meeting with him quite frequently lately, haven't you? What exactly have you been discussing?" Melody stared at the photos as if struck by lightning, and collapsed to the ground. "No, it's not. It's not." Lewis pressed on. "Then why don't you explain why a dancer from the entertainment troupe is asking a foreign reporter about our unit's rotation schedule and military exercise deployments? Are you so interested in national affairs you're planning to become the Secretary of Defense?" A gasp went through the crowd. This was no longer a simple false accusation. This was treason. Espionage. The two security officers' legs gave out, and they nearly fell to their knees. They never imagined that while investigating a supposedly suspicious military wife, they would stumble upon a real, live spy. "Take her away," Lewis ordered, not even glancing at Melody on the ground. "And investigate that Deputy Director Evans while you're at it. I don't care if he's a director or a deputy director. If he dares to stick his hands into my family, I'll chop them off." His powerful words echoed through the courtyard, filled with the unyielding authority of a soldier. His inner voice was just exciting. "Mess with me, fine. Mess with my wife? Not happening. I don't care who it is. Not even God himself." I looked at his determined profile, my eyes welling up. This man was my hero. The affair with Melody and Deputy Director Evans sent shockwaves through the base. The investigation revealed that the deputy director had been using his position to collude with Melody, leaking non-critical military information to a foreign reporter in exchange for money and a supposed boost to his career. They had targeted me because Melody was jealous, and because they thought a city girl with an unknown background would be the perfect scapegoat. By framing me as a spy, they could cover their own tracks. Unfortunately for them, they didn't count on Lewis returning early, nor did they count on him already being suspicious and having gathered evidence against them. In the end, Melody and the deputy director received their just deserts. Jessica, implicated in the scandal, was thoroughly disgraced and quietly moved back to her parents' house with her kids. After that battle, no one dared to gossip about me again. I became a legend on the base, a woman not to be trifled with. After the storm passed, Lewis got another week of leave. Our life together was as sweet as honey. One night, we were lying side by side, watching the moonlight stream through the window. "Lewis," I said, resting my head on his shoulder, "how did you know Melody was up to something?" Lewis was quiet for a moment before answering. "A gut feeling." I didn't believe him for a second. His inner voice had already betrayed him. "I can't tell her I had someone investigate Melody from the very first time she bothered you, can I? I also can't tell her that every time I wrote you a letter, the little hints I dropped were actually coded messages. And I definitely can't tell her that I dug up her entire family history just to protect you. If I told her, she'd think I'm a creepy control freak, right?" This man had done so much for me in secret, yet he wouldn't say a word about it. My heart felt full to bursting. "Lewis," I said, sitting up to look at him seriously, "I have something to tell you." Seeing my solemn expression, he grew tense. "What's wrong? What's she going to say?" "She's not going to ask for a divorce, is she? Because I investigated Melody, and now she thinks I'm some kind of scheming manipulator?" "No. I can't live without my wife." Watching the dramatic soap opera unfold in his head, I couldn't help but chuckle. "What I wanted to say is," I dragged out the words. He swallowed nervously. "I think I might be pregnant." The air froze. A full 10 seconds passed before he seemed to process it, suddenly launching himself off the bed. What did you say?" His voice was trembling. "I said, you're going to be a father, Major," I said with a smile. At that moment, his inner voice was louder than ever, filled with ecstatic disbelief. "I'm going to be a dad? I'm going to be a dad. Ha 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 ha. I have an heir." He spun around in a circle like an idiot, then rushed over, swept me into his arms, and started spinning me around the room. "Slow down, slow down. I cried, dizzy from the motion. Be careful of the baby. He stopped immediately, gently placing me back on the bed. Then he knelt down and pressed his ear to my stomach with a look of pure reverence. Can I hear him? I'm only a month along. What do you think you can hear? I couldn't help but be charmed by his foolishness. But he listened intently. I think I hear something. A heartbeat. Wait, no, that's my own heartbeat. What's he doing in there? Is he kicking my wife? When he gets out, if it's a boy and he dares to bully my wife, I'll spank him 8 times a day. I stroked his head, feeling the joy and anticipation of impending fatherhood radiating from him. I suddenly realized that my secret, being able to hear his thoughts, could perhaps stay a secret forever. Because I no longer needed to hear his thoughts to understand him. His every action, his every look, told me that he loved me. And that was enough. 1 year later. Colonel Lewis. You need to get your son. He's using my lipstick as a crayon again. I stood in the living room, hands on my hips, yelling toward the study. That's right, Lewis had been promoted from major to colonel. And I had successfully unloaded my cargo, giving birth to a little demon who was his spitting image. We named him Nate. The study door opened, and Lewis walked out quickly in his lounge clothes. He first looked at our son, whose face was painted like a clown, then at the bright red streak on the wall, and frowned. Nate, he said sternly. The moment the little guy saw his dad, he dropped the lipstick, toddled over on his short legs, and latched onto Lewis's leg. Daddy. Daddy, up. Lewis's inner voice instantly switched from I'm going to tan your hide to my precious baby boy. Sigh, my son is so cute. Oh well, it's just lipstick. I'll buy my wife 10 more. And the wall, we can just repaint it. A boy needs to be spoiled a little. He bent down, scooped the little guy up, and bounced him in his arms. No more mischief. Go and apologize to your mom. The little guy wrapped his arms around his dad's neck, then planted a big, slobbery kiss on my cheek, smearing a mixture of saliva and lipstick all over my face. Sorry, Mommy. What could I say? I looked at the big and little man in front of me and sighed with a smile. That night, after putting the little monster to bed, Lewis hugged me from behind, his chin resting in the crook of my neck. Tired? What do you think? I shot him a playful glare. He let out a low chuckle and kissed my cheek. You've worked hard, honey. He could say these sweet things so naturally now. Although what he was thinking was still way more than what he was saying. Like right now. My wife smells so good. The kid's asleep. Does that mean we can get down to business? Tonight, I'm definitely making up for last time, and the time before that. I turned around, wrapped my arms around his neck, and whispered in his ear, Colonel, you're having some very dangerous thoughts. Lewis froze, then realized what I meant, and his ears turned red again. He swept me up into his arms and strode toward our bed. The dangerous part is yet to come. The moonlight spilled gently through the window. I knew that with this man by my side, my future would always be just like this, warm, lively, and full of love and sunshine.